Hello my friends, today I'm going to show you using the Sirius software to do some creative kinds of things. And I'm going to talk very fast, assuming you're already familiar with the basics of Sirius. Perhaps you've already watched the introduction to Sirius video, or you have Sirius. And I'll show you, creative uses of the program, the kinds of things astrologers run into, the issues that you run into when you actually use the software that go beyond the basics, like when people tell you, oh, my program can do this or it can do that. Well, what happens when you get in there and you're actually trying to do something, get it to look the way you want to put it in your ebook or a book you're going to print or a newsletter and all these things that come up. You might want to do some interesting things, like what if you want to do a triwheel of two natal charts and a composite chart? Sounds reasonable enough. Do you have to do anything special? Is it intuitive? Can you just get there nice and easily? What if you wanted to do a solar return to the composite chart? It's not something that astrologers do every day, but you may want to do something like that. So I'm going to show you what happens in these situations where you're wanting to do something that is not just the basic thing that everybody does, like a triwheel of a natal progressed in transit, or things that are common. What if you're a creative type? What if you experiment with different things? What if you use different systems of astrology? What if you want essential dignities from the medieval system, but you also do some Vedic? And how do you see all this information and navigate through it without having to jump back and forth and reselect things or get lost? So I'm going to go very quickly through some scenarios of how you go about and do things. I'm in the opening screen. So I'll click start and we'll just start new list of charts. Okay, I'm in the data entry screen. Let me pull this down somewhere into the middle here. And let's do Bill and Hillary Clinton. So I type Clinton, comma B. You're familiar with this. I can click on his name. There's also get first with an underline under the G, means I can just do Alt G. I often use those Alt keys, they're called hot keys, because I like to work very fast, and the time it takes 1 second to move my mouse seems very slow. So you have these hotkeys. All programs do. This is not unique to Sirius, but it's a thing to know about. Here's new natal to put in the new data. It doesn't have to be natal. It could be an event chart or whatever. So I'll click on it, or I could do Alt-N, and I'll do Clinton. Actually, she's already up there. I can just click on her name, Hillary Clinton. But if I didn't notice that, I could type Clinton, comma, and then I can see her right there. If I type H, she jumps to the top. I can do the Alt-G, or click on her name. I've got my two charts. Okay, I've entered their data. I click Done. There we go. I've got a nice chart wheel for Hillary Clinton, and I can see her chart, and I can go here and I click at Bill's chart. Now, very good. I'm noticing this wheel's a little small. Notice there's some background area here. So I'll increase, I just noticed that, I'll increase the size of this. I'm always fiddling around with the program and customizing and helping customers, and I don't know where I left things off. Anyway, it's nice. I can just decrease the size and increase the size. And by the way, while I'm looking at this, I'm getting sort of distracted. I want to select a composite chart, but the thing that occurs to me is, and I referred to it a little bit in the introduction, is this wheel is what we call landscape. It's wider than it is tall. We put the birth information on the side here. You can put your company name. I believe we've got our company name, but you could put your company name there in case you're saving it to file or printing it or whatever, and you want to have that. And some wheel styles we put the birth information in the middle of the wheel, but if you do that you can't have aspect lines. And also if I right click to go to my wheel styles and I go to special and I select medieval wheel, so there's a medieval wheel style, and I could say, yeah, I like that wheel. I could click OK. And this is handy to have a smaller wheel with all these tables around it. So some people like this kind of thing because then you don't have to look at a separate listing. It's all in one window. but you probably want it to be landscape because your screen is landscape. Your screen is wider than it is high. Sometimes if you save to file, suppose you're making an ebook or a newsletter. Most newsletters are what we call portrait. They're taller than they are wide. So this is nice for the screen, but not so good for other situations. So what do you do then? Well, if I was to want to print it, which we don't do very often, but just to show you something, it says print, or print portrait version of this wheel. So for every wheel style, there's a landscape and a portrait version. Why? Because landscape is great for looking at on the screen, but you might want to save this for your ebook or your newsletter, and maybe it's probably going to be portrait, which is typically the case, and you'd like the same information but reversed. So just because of this whole problem, landscape being fitting the screen better, but portrait being important for other things, we have a portrait landscape button, and there you see your portrait version. Same information, and you can customize. When you go to customize and you go to page designer, etc., you'll be customizing the portrait version. Now this portrait version, what if I want to see it all because I'm having to scroll around? Well, I can hit my magnifying lens and make it smaller. Make it smaller. Well, this is taking forever. I can go over here to this magnify reduce button and say, fit it to the area. It says, are you sure you want to be looking at the portrait? The landscape looks better on the screen. I say, yeah, I'm sure. Don't change the landscape. And I still need to reduce it a little more, and a little more, and a little more. And you'll see that to really fit it entirely without any scroll bars, it's so small, even on my screen, in this tutorial where everything gets reduced in lower resolution, you probably can't read this at all, but even for me, it's too small to read. So portrait doesn't work very well for looking at on the screen, but it is nice when you save it in a high resolution image for your ebook, and it will be very readable. So we have a portrait and a landscape version. So I'll go back to the landscape version, kept it at that size. I'll jump to fit the window vertically, and boink, now I've got my my full size wheel. So I feel like I'm running all over the place, but the basic idea is this. It's nice for your software to show you things landscape if you like to have these tables around the wheel. If you don't like to have tables around the wheel, well, then just use a wheel like this, and you could select a listing that will give you that kind of information. So you could go to listing and go to Ancient Western and Huber and select this Ancient Western stuff, or medieval, whatever you want to call it. We called it Ancient Western because, it goes all the way back. The older stuff they call Hellenistic, and then medieval, and then it continues into the Renaissance. So we just call it Ancient Western. And then there's a button here with a little star, a little blue asterisk looking thing, Ancient Western items, and here you see you can select what you want. And there's the Heilig and Alcachadon, and the Almudebet and the Anareta. You may never have heard of those if you're a medieval astrologer. They could be very important to you. Do you want a partile and reformation table? So you can select what you want in this table. I'll select those for no particular reason. Here's where I could select which essential dignities table I want. There are different rules for tables. I click OK. Selection saved. Thank you. OK. Well, let's click OK and see this thing. And it's taking it a few seconds to do it because the reformation table takes a little while. And actually this doesn't look so great. What's happening is it's wrapping around. The text is not fitting in this little window. So, increase the window. When I magnify the window, notice that this window for my listings and reports is a movable little window, and it has its own little icons for printing, saving to file, quickly resizing, and then the magnifying lenses. I can also just email, and I can also just close the window. So now I have our aspects and reformation table. It's very cool. Here's my previous and next 20 aspects to the moon. Tells me how many days ago it happened, what the positions of the planets are, what they were at the time that that aspect occurred, what the date was, and so on. So this can be used in electional astrology and horary astrology for seeing when things are going to happen. And then it also shows me some additional information. Here's an essential dignities table, and almutins and compound almutins, and this thing is called Heilig and Alkachedon, and so on. Anareta degrees, with all these complex rules and all the logic behind it. So you have all these advanced features, advanced if you're not, for most people, or exotic features, and even if you don't use these things, if you get curious about it or it comes up, it's nice to know about. Maybe you'll read a book or attend a lecture about it, and you have it. So one of the things is the great ease of use and that these advanced features don't get in your way. So here's our table. So if you like I'll drag this over a little bit here so it won't overlap with my wheel. And I click on my wheel, and I can say, oh, here's my wheel, and I can click over here and say, here are my tables. So I can click between them. If I have a nice big screen, rather than this small area that I'm capturing for this tutorial, there'll probably be some blue space in between the wheel and these listings, and that's nice for dragging this over without overlapping the wheel so much. I also have a pop-up wheel, where if I'm looking at this, I could say, give me the pop-up wheel, and I can resize the pop-up wheel, make it smaller, make it bigger. How much fun is that? Are we having fun yet? Okay. And then I can drag it around. So that can be handy. What was I going to show you? If I go here to select chart, it has I can actually show a different chart. I could be showing Bill's chart or Hillary's chart. So I could click on Hillary, and then it would allow me to look at Hillary while I'm looking at Bill's listing. And there's also a box here for whether I want to keep the wheel visible, and an explanation of that. But basically what that means is, as I scroll, or I even can click on the wheel, this pop-up will stay there. Or it can only be there while I'm looking. So anyway, you've got pop-up wheels, you have two separate windows. I'll close this pop-up wheel. I can close this if it's just annoying me. I can get back to it just by clicking, and I'm back to it. Or I could do a medieval wheel, which has my tables right there next to it. So all these different options, having the separate wheels, different ways of working, it's all very handy. I've got things sized in landscape to fit my screen, but I can save in portrait. These are the kinds of details that are nice to have and be able to work with. Now, I got on a tangent. I was going to show you how to do a bi-wheel and do things like a solar return to the bi-wheel and so on. Let me go back to a simple wheel. So if all this planetary sect and everything gives you a headache because you're not familiar with it, I'll go to a simple wheel. There we go. And of course I could just click here to get back to that, or to get back to my reformation table. Those little memory lists of all the charts I've selected in the reports are so handy. Okay. Whew, I told you I talk fast. Now the composite chart. Well, it's another chart. So you go over here, and it's right there. And we say, give me a composite. And it opens up a little window. These windows tend to jump outside this little part of my screen that I capture for the tutorial. I'm using this software to capture part of my window, and I resize everything to fit in it. Anyway, I'm looking at Bill Clinton's chart, and it says select a chart to make a composite chart with. Well, I've got only one other chart, Hillary, so that's highlighted, nothing else. And I have different kinds of composites, something called ascendant midheaven, midheaven midpoint. Derived at latitude. Well, this is interesting. When I click on derived at latitude, it asks me what place I want. If I go back to these, there's no place to select. So nice ease of use. Oink. We need a place. There it is. Don't need a place. It disappears. There's another advanced feature, direct distance. If I check it, it highlights it. If I uncheck it, it gets rid of the highlighting. The highlighting catches your attention. There's an explanation of what a direct distance composite chart is, because you probably don't know what it is. It's an unusual thing. So that's helpful, and it draws your attention to it if you select it. All these little refined touches to make it easy to use. So I click OK to select my composite chart, and there it is. There's Hillary and Bill. Composite chart, and if I'm an astrologer, I can interpret it and say, Jupiter square Saturn, and Saturn and Pluto are conjunct in 12th house. Some astrologers may think that's not so good, etc. Moon sextile, and I interpret it. Okay, great. Now, what if you want to get a triwheel of the two natal charts and the composite chart? What do? Simple. Select triwheel. Sirius and Kepler don't care that it's a composite chart as opposed to a natal chart. You can do anything, almost anything, to a composite chart that you do to a natal chart. The only reason you can't do something, well, it gets technical. Anyway, basically you can do anything to any chart. So, triwheel would be right here. It's a report, multi-wheels, bi-wheel, the little hint tells you, two little wheels in the icon. The icons are faster and easier than using the words for most people. For me, they are. And after a while, you just know the wheel is right up there on the left side of your green icons. And I select the triwheel, and I say, yeah, put Bill in the inner, fine. Hillary in the middle, good. Composite in the outer, sounds great. Click OK. And then it says, what wheel style do you want? I was customizing this to just show Jupiter and Uranus. I think I was doing this for a class or something. Or was it a previous video? I don't remember. But I often leave my settings a mess from what I was working on. I'll select a different one. This looks fine. Here's a little triwheel with an aspect grid. Let's do this, let's say very large, unequal in zodiac. Oh, that looks nice. So I've got a zodiac around the outside. And again, while you select, you can see what you're doing. If I want to customize, and click customize. So I click OK. And I've got my triwheel. So that was easy now. So there's nothing, just selecting a triwheel with the two charts. So there's Bill in the middle and Bill in the inner, Hillary in the middle. Outer ring is the composite, and it tells me it's a composite of chart 1 is Bill Clinton natal, chart 2 is Hillary Rodham natal. It says natal because I could do a composite of any two charts very easily. I could do a composite of a solar return and somebody else's natal, or whatever I want to do, just as easily as two natal charts. Now, what other creative things might you want to do? I mentioned, what if you want to do a return to the composite? Okay, no big deal. I'm looking at the composite. I've got two reports. I've got a wheel. There's my chart wheel. I've also got a tri-wheel selected. There's my tri-wheel. Doesn't matter what I'm looking at. Let's just look at the wheel. Doesn't really matter. And I can go in here and select returns. So I select a return, solar return to this composite, right? My current entry is the composite. So I select solar return. You are selecting a solar return of a chart that is not a natal chart. You are a weirdo. Are you sure you want to do this weird thing? Yeah, I know. I'm strange. Okay, yes, I want to do it. And which is a helpful thing because you can do these things. And if you're working quickly or you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you might think you're selecting a normal solar return, but you're actually doing a solar return of a composite. And let's do two of them for 2 consecutive years for, I don't know, no particular reason. I could precess it, I could relocate it, maybe I want to do it for Washington, D.C., or wherever they live. I'll just leave it for Hope, Arkansas. I'll click OK, and there we go. So I've got a solar return, which happens to be on September 26, 2013. The solar return is calculated for Hope, Arkansas, because that's what I selected. I didn't change that. Of the composite chart. So there we go. Bill and Hillary Clinton. So So that's all there is to it. No big deal. Let's see, what else do I want to show you about this? Oh yeah, I did 2 of them, so I could click over here. And by the way, the Sun is 29 Virgo 24. I go to the next one, which is for late September 2014. Sun 29 Virgo 24. Just to confirm, I could show the Sun to the second, and it will match to the second. But right here, we just see it to the minute. And if I go back to the composite, the composite is 29 Virgo 24, so it is giving me the solar return to the composite. So I'm just showing you, you can really do anything to any chart you want to do very simply, and the way it displays the information is also nice. If I go back to the solar return, excuse me, it tells me it's a solar return, occurs on September 22nd, calculated for Hope, Arkansas, because that determines the house cusps. For Bill and Hillary Clinton. So, there we go. So it explains nicely what you're doing. Now, I've shown you, did I show you? Oh yeah, I showed you the medieval wheel, and seeing the medieval in a listing, blah, blah, blah. What else do I want to do here? Oh, another example. This may sound really strange, but it's something I actually do. I'm going to click on the composite, and I like to do the 9th harmonic of the composite chart. It's very fascinating. I'm tempted to show you Prince Charles and Diana. Oh, I'm going to do it real quick. Just take a second. I'm going to do File, Add, Charles, Prince, Charles Good, Alt N, Diana, can I find the Diana of Wales Princess? Okay. I'm going to select their composite chart of 2 charts. Bring this down where you can see it. And I'm looking at Diana. I want to compare her to Prince Charles. Good, okay, I'll select the default. Now I'm looking at the composite. Chart 1 is Princess Diana, her natal chart. Chart 2 is Prince Charles, his natal chart. This is my 8th entry. My first entry is Bill natal, his natal chart. Second is Hillary's natal. Third is a composite. Fourth was a solar return to the composite for 2013. The 5th was the next solar return. 6th is Prince Charles. I've got Diana, and now I've got the composite. I'm just reminding you what we did, and that all that is, remembered here. Now, let's do something weird. David's really weird. He likes to do the harmonic chart of a composite chart. How strange is that? But you probably have strange things you do. So I'm going to select harmonic chart. Yes, I know I'm strange. I just already said that. It's reminding me that I'm doing a harmonic chart of something that's not a natal chart. I'll say give me the 9th harmonic chart. And look at this. Is this interesting or what? They have a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, square Uranus. This is 26 to 28. This is 29. Mars and Neptune are 26, 27. So you've got this T-square of Mars, Neptune, Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus. Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus. That's challenging. So anyway, it's interesting. You've got this 9th harmonic chart of a composite chart. So you can do creative things. You can do these things very, very easily. Kepler and Sirius don't really care. Now, what other things you might want to do? Maybe you want to explore an astro map. Let's go back to Bill and Hillary. So here's Bill. Okay, great. So I pull up an astro map. I'll go to Maps, Astro Map, and I'll say, yeah, United States is fine. I could type Europe. I could type, Virginia, a particular state, and it shows me a preview. Let's just leave it with United States, fine. And I could do a basic map, no orbs, just lines, and I could pick conjunctions and oppositions, or I could have major aspects. If you do that, you get a typical map here. I can also resize this, with the resizing icon here. It's this little thing, and I could say, increase the size or decrease it. If I say decrease, it made it a little smaller. and it's a window, and I can drag it around. So there it is, and it shows Mars and Neptune going conjunct the ascendant, going through here. The yellow ones are the ascendant. Here's Uranus conjunct the midheaven, and so on. So again, it's a nice separate window. I could drag it over here. I could look at the wheel. I can go back here and see the map. I can right-click on the map. I love these things called treasure maps. And I could see where is vocation and career good for Bill, for United States. Click OK. And then it does this shading of everything that's related to vocation and career, and the red areas are stronger and so on. So I've got that in a separate window. I've got this here. I could go back to some of those reports, like this one, and this is the one that took a few seconds to calculate. So now I've got 3 windows, and I could drag this around. I've got the wheel back here, the listing window, and the astromap window. So there you go. If you now, what if I'm looking at? Let me close this window. And what if I'm looking at this thing and I go, oh, it's a great, Albuquerque right in here, up through here is a great place for Bill. I wonder what's going on for Hillary. Well, I could use this multi-select feature, and I could say select current reports for other entries. I could say give me these reports for Hillary. Click OK, and I'm looking at the vocation and career, and now when I go back to Hillary, I can click on vocation and career, and I don't have to select it. She now has all the same exact reports as Bill, and it pulls it up, and I could say, how do you like that? What was I looking at? I don't remember. Coming through here, I think, is also good for Hillary. Whatever. Anyway, you got the idea. So this ability to remember, to see the same reports for other people, to have things sized nice and large to fit your screen, they all help you navigate and move around. You can explore things creatively very easily. If I want, let me close this window for no particular reason, just because I'm going to go on to something else. I could say, okay, I'm looking at Hillary. Let me look at the Vedic. There's these things called chakras and vargas. And it pulls up the Kepler workshop, which is a separate module. And in this Kepler workshop, I now see her Varga charts. I can see them all at once. I can select which ones I want. I've got a whole bunch checked here. But I could uncheck whichever ones I want. Some people just want the Saptamsa and the Navamsa. So you select those. It's a nice scrolling thing. Now, I'm in this new window of other features, which we call the KWS or Kepler Workshop, part of Sirius. And then if I want to get back to the Sirius window, I can just click here, and I jump back to my Sirius program, and you have it right there. So what happens is you can jump between these windows and the other windows. What actually happens if you have a normal screen display like on a laptop, you can have your Kepler Workshop on one side and Sirius on the other. They don't overlap. Because I'm using a small area of my screen, I think I can probably still scroll this over. Yeah, I can scroll this over. I could actually shrink this screen, and you get the idea. I would have this to the side. I can, well, to give you a more realistic idea, I could shrink this screen just to give you an idea. And so I would have, Kepler on one side and Kepler Workshop, or Sirius on one side and Kepler Workshop on the other. Or it could be Kepler, if you want Kepler instead of Sirius. And you've got them both right there. It's another way of dealing with having lots of things going on. A handy thing a lot of people do, for example, is they go to Ephemeris, and they go to Text Ephemeris, which is in the Kepler Workshop part. And now, I'm looking at a Text Ephemeris. I can click over here, because it's visible, not overlapping, and I could be looking at my chart wheel and the ephemeris at the same time. On a normal size screen, not a little tiny window area like I'm capturing here, both of these can be not completely overlapping. I'm going to increase the size of my Sirius window to fit this so that you can see these things a little bit better. There we go, that's about right. So on this little area I'm capturing, they're completely overlapped, but I was showing you that on a regular laptop computer with any of the typical resolutions, they don't have to overlap, and you could see them both at the same time. And these are more ways that we allow you to use your screen display area to look at a lot of things at one time, and also to jump back and forth with these memory things. So it gives you an idea of how you can navigate, move around, have lots of information available, and work very quickly. You already know from the other ones the whole interactive concept where you right-click, you go to customize, and you pop things in and out. I haven't shown some of the fun interactive. I haven't shown you the page designer here. This is not a video about the whole overall ease of use. Those are in other videos. The introduction to Sirius explains that. This is just on the creative use of the program for pulling up different kinds of information, having all that information available to you nice and fast and easy. What else? Let me see what else I wanted to do. I think I've shown you most of the things. There's so many features. I see a few more notes, but I'll skip that. I think this is enough for one session, so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that gives you a feeling for how you navigate and can explore and work with some of the different features. I'm only showing you just a couple of tiny little things, focusing on this idea of the ability to creatively go in and select what you want and navigate through the program very quickly. Okay, well, I think that's enough for one video. I just hope you don't get the impression that I'm giving you a sense of of all the kinds of things. Just a couple of ideas in terms of basic access to different types of chart information that you might want to create that's not sort of your normal everyday things you hear about. So I'll be doing more videos, and I've got some other ones already, but more videos on specific areas where you can be entirely creative within whole distinct sections of the program. Okay, I hope that helps. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll sign off here. Thank you very much for listening. I hope I didn't talk too fast, and I hope you got something new out of that. Alrighty, take care. God bless. Namaste.